She said Dad just throw her things away, all of them. The suitcase felt heavier than it should have. When I unzipped it, my hands started shaking. Because my wife hadn't packed clothes, she'd packed proof, and it was never meant for me. My name is Harold Bennett. I'm 62 years old and I live in Madison, Wisconsin. 3 weeks after my wife passed, my daughter insisted everything be cleared out immediately. I thought it was grief talking. I was wrong. Please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you're listening from. Grief doesn't arrive all at once. It leaks in slowly, like water through cracked walls. Some days I woke up and forgot that the other side of the bed was empty, forgot that the house no longer breathed the same way. Other days the silence crushed me. The morning my daughter asked me to clear my wife's things, I was still stuck between those two states, half numb, half drowning. She stood in the doorway of the bedroom, arms folded tightly across her chest, eyes fixed on the closet behind me. "Dad," she said, not unkindly, "it's not healthy to keep all this." I nodded, because nodding was easier than arguing, easier than admitting I hadn't opened that closet since the funeral. My wife's clothes still hung there, neatly arranged, color-coded the way she liked them. Lavender sachets tucked between hangers, the faintest trace of her perfume still clinging to the air. I stood there longer than I meant to. My daughter shifted impatiently. "We should just pack it up," she said. "Donate what we can. Throw the rest away, throw the rest away." The words hit harder than I expected. "She was your mother," I said quietly. "I know," she replied quickly. Then softer, "That's why we need to move on. Move on." I didn't say what I was thinking, that moving on felt like betrayal, that touching her things felt like erasing her. Instead, I grabbed the first suitcase I saw. It was the old navy one, scuffed corners, a broken zipper she never bothered fixing. She used it only once a year. I remembered watching her pack it slowly, deliberately, always checking a folded list she kept tucked into her wallet. I pulled it out from under the bed. It was heavier than I expected. That should have been my first warning. "Careful," my daughter said. "What's in there, bricks?" I tried to smile. It didn't work. When I lifted the suitcase onto the bed, the mattress dipped noticeably. Too much. "Did she store books in here?" my daughter asked. "I don't know," I said, though unease had already begun curling in my stomach. I unzipped it, not all the way, just enough to peek inside, and froze. There were no clothes, no shoes, no toiletries. Instead, I saw folders, manila folders, stacked neatly, labeled in my wife's handwriting. My chest tightened. I glanced at my daughter. She was already turning toward the door. "I'm going to make some coffee," she said. "Just pack fast, okay?" She didn't look back. I waited until her footsteps faded down the hall. Then I opened the suitcase fully. Inside were at least a dozen folders, each one thick, heavy, swollen with paper. Every single one had a name written on it. Some I recognized, some I didn't. But what stopped my breathing was the one sitting right on top. My daughter's name, written clearly, carefully, as if my wife had wanted to make sure there was no mistake. My hands started shaking. I told myself it was probably medical paperwork. School records, something harmless, but deep down I knew. My wife never hid harmless things. I lifted the folder and opened it. The first page wasn't a document, it was a letter, dated 6 months before my wife died, addressed to me. I had never seen it before. If you're reading this, then I didn't get the chance to explain everything. My throat closed. "I need you to promise me something before you go any further." Promise. I hated that word. Please don't confront her immediately. Please don't let anger decide what you do next. Anger, my heart started pounding harder. "I know this will hurt you." It hurt me first. I lowered the letter, suddenly aware of how loud the house felt. The ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator, my own uneven breathing. I flipped to the next page, photocopies, bank statements, large withdrawals, regular intervals, always the same amount, always routed through the same account. An account I didn't recognize. I flipped another page, printed emails. Short, cold, transactional, no warmth, no affection. But the sender's name appeared again and again. My daughter. My fingers went numb. This couldn't be right. I must have misunderstood. Misread. I turned page after page, hoping for an explanation to jump out and save me. Instead, it only got worse. Receipts, contracts, legal consultations, and then photos, printed, not digital. My daughter sitting across from a man I'd never seen before, a man in a suit, expensive watch. Unfamiliar office. The timestamp on the photo made my stomach drop. taken while my wife was still alive, while she was sick, while I was sitting beside her hospital bed, holding her hand, believing our family was intact. My chest felt tight, like it was being slowly crushed. I closed the folder and stared at it as if it might rearrange itself into something less horrifying. It didn't. I opened the next folder. Another name, another set of documents, different amounts, different dates. Same pattern. My wife hadn't been packing to travel. She'd been building a record, a case, against her own child. I pressed my palm flat against the bed to steady myself. Why didn't she tell me? The answer came immediately, and it hurt, because she knew I wouldn't survive it, not while she was still alive. I heard footsteps in the kitchen, my daughter laughing softly on the phone, normal, carefree. The sound felt wrong now, like hearing music at a funeral. I quickly closed the suitcase and zipped it partway, just as she walked back into the room holding 2 mugs. She handed one to me. "You okay?" she asked. "You look pale." I stared at her face, the same face I'd memorized since she was born. The same eyes my wife used to say were too honest to ever lie. I forced myself to nod. "Just tired," I said. She smiled faintly. "Yeah, me too." She sat on the edge of the bed right next to the suitcase. I felt my pulse spike. "We should get rid of this one first," she said casually, tapping the suitcase with her fingers. "It's old. Nobody would want it. Get rid of it." My wife's final message. Thrown away. I took a slow breath. "Why the rush?" I asked carefully. She shrugged. "Because holding on to stuff doesn't bring people back." The words sounded rehearsed, practiced. I nodded slowly. "You're right," I said. Inside, something hardened, because now I understood. My daughter didn't want these things gone because of grief. She wanted them gone because of fear. Fear that I would open the suitcase. Fear that I would read what my wife left behind. Fear that I would finally see the version of my daughter my wife had seen before it was too late. I lifted the suitcase slightly. "Why don't I take this one to the garage?" I said. "Out of the way." Her eyes flicked to the zipper, just for a second, but I saw it. "Sure," she said quickly. "Good idea." I carried the suitcase down the hall, my heart pounding with every step. When I reached the garage, I closed the door behind me, locked it, and sat down on the concrete floor, my back against the wall, the suitcase in my lap. My wife had left me something, not memories, not keepsakes, the truth, and I had a terrible feeling that what I'd seen so far was only the beginning. I didn't answer Daniel right away. I couldn't, because standing there in the open garage with my daughter on one side and a man I barely knew on the other, I finally understood something that made my stomach twist. This wasn't a family argument. It was a negotiation, and I was the asset. "Speed things up," I repeated slowly. "Explain what you mean." Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. "It means," he said calmly, "we stop pretending this is emotional and start treating it like what it is." He glanced at my daughter, a loose end. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't object. That hurt more than anything else. "I'm not a loose end," I said. "I'm your father." She looked away. "You're in the way," she replied quietly. Mom understood that, eventually. My breath caught. "So you admit it," I said. "You were trying to control her." My daughter scoffed. "No, I was trying to save us." She was going to tear everything apart because she didn't trust anyone anymore. "She trusted the truth," I snapped. "And you were hiding it." Daniel stepped closer, hands raised slightly like he was calming an animal. "Let's slow down," he said. "Everyone's exhausted. Grief makes people irrational." "Irrational," I shot back. "My wife documented everything, bank records, recordings, contracts. That's not irrational." Daniel nodded, unfazed. "No," he said, "that's thorough." The word landed wrong, too approving. My heart pounded. "You knew," I said suddenly, looking at him. "You knew she was collecting evidence." He didn't deny it. "She asked questions," he said. "Questions that could have caused problems for all of us." "For you," I corrected. "For your daughter," he replied smoothly. "She was being manipulated by paranoia." My daughter flinched at that, just slightly. "Don't," she said to him. He glanced at her, surprised. "Don't what?" he asked. "Don't talk about her like that," she said sharply. "She wasn't paranoid. She was just inconvenient." The word echoed in the garage. Inconvenient. That's what my wife had been reduced to. I felt something in me harden. "I'm not giving you the suitcase," I said firmly. "And I'm not signing anything else. Not now, not ever." Daniel sighed. I was hoping you'd say that, he said. He reached into his jacket. My heart lurched. But he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a folder, thick, black, professional. He handed it to my daughter. She opened it, eyes scanning quickly. Her face went pale. "What is this?" she asked. Daniel looked at me. "It's the part your wife didn't finish," he said. "The contingency." I stepped forward. "What contingency?" Daniel tilted his head. "She knew," he said. "She knew if you found the suitcase, you wouldn't just hand it over." My pulse spiked. "She set up protections," he continued. "Instructions, safeguards." I laughed bitterly. "That doesn't sound like something you volunteer." He smiled thinly. "I didn't have a choice." My daughter looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Daniel hesitated, just long enough for me to notice. "She left copies," he admitted, "of everything, not just here, not just in that suitcase." My chest tightened. "Where?" I asked. He met my eyes. "With a lawyer," he said, "a journalist, and a third party you don't want involved." Silence slammed into the space between us. My daughter's hands trembled. "She wouldn't," she whispered. "She did," Daniel replied, "and she set conditions." I felt dizzy. "What conditions?" I asked. Daniel exhaled slowly. "If anything happened to you," he said, "or if the evidence disappeared, everything would be released." Released? To whom? The public, authorities. I didn't need to ask. My daughter sank onto a crate, her face pale, eyes unfocused. "She promised me," she murmured. "She promised she wouldn't ruin me. She promised to protect the truth," I said, "and she kept that promise." Daniel straightened. "Which brings us back to speeding things up," he said. "The longer this drags on, the more unpredictable it becomes." "You're threatening us," I said. "No," he replied calmly. "I'm warning you." He turned to my daughter. "We need the suitcase," he said. "Every copy, every recording, before someone else gets curious." My daughter looked at me, and for the first time since this began, I saw fear there. Real fear, not fear of me, fear of consequences. "Dad," she said quietly, "please give it to us." Us, not me, us. "You can still protect me," she added, "like you always have." That broke something inside me. "I protected you when you were a child," I said, "when protection meant teaching you right from wrong." I took a step back. "This," I gestured between them, "this isn't protection. This is damage control." Her eyes filled with tears or something close enough to fool me. "You don't understand what I've done," she said. "I understand exactly what you've done," I replied. "And now I understand what your mother was trying to stop." Daniel glanced at his watch. "We're running out of time," he said. Before I could respond, a car pulled up in front of the house. Not Daniel S., another one, dark. Unmarked, my heart dropped. Daniel's posture stiffened. "That's not mine," he said quietly. My daughter stood. "What is it?" she asked. Daniel didn't answer. The car door opened. A woman stepped out, mid-40s, blazer, noon-sense posture. She looked at the house, then at us. Then she smiled, not warmly, professionally. "Harold Bennett," she called out. My blood ran cold. "Yes," I answered. She approached slowly. "My name is Elaine Porter," she said, handing me a card. "I represent the estate of your late wife." Daniel cursed under his breath. Elaine noticed. "Ah," she said lightly. "I see everyone S here." My daughter stared at her. "You can't be," she whispered. "You weren't supposed to." Elaine raised an eyebrow. "Be here," she finished. "Your mother anticipated delays." She turned to me. "She asked me to come if you didn't contact me within 30 days. My pulse hammered. "And she asked me to make sure," Elaine continued, "that you weren't alone when you discovered the suitcase." I swallowed hard. Elaine's eyes flicked to Daniel. "And she specifically instructed me," she said coolly, "to involve authorities if this man was present." Daniel stiffened. "That's unnecessary," he said quickly. "This is a private family matter." Elaine smiled thinly. "So was fraud," she replied. "So was coercion. So was financial exploitation of a terminally ill woman." My daughter cried out. "Stop," she shouted. "You don't know everything." Elaine looked at her. "I know enough," she said, "and I know your mother was terrified." She turned back to me. "She left you a final instruction," Elaine said softly. "One she said you would struggle with." My chest tightened. "What is it?" I asked. Elaine met my eyes. "She said if you hesitated, if you tried to protect anyone, you would lose everything she died trying to preserve." Daniel stepped forward. "This is getting out of hand," he snapped. Elaine didn't flinch. "I've already sent copies," she said calmly, "to the Financial Crimes Unit, to the Ethics Board, and to the reporter your wife trusted." Daniel went very still. My daughter stared at him. You told me it was handled, she whispered. Daniel didn't answer. That silence told me everything. Elaine stepped closer to me. You have a choice now, she said. Stand with the truth or stand with people who will abandon you the moment you stop being useful. My daughter looked at me. Not pleading now, measuring, calculating, I felt the weight of the suitcase in my mind. My wife's voice seemed to echo in my head, steady, calm, certain. Don't let anger decide what you do next. I took a breath, then another, and finally I spoke. I'm not handing the suitcase to either of you, I said. Daniel's face darkened. My daughter's shoulders slumped. I'm giving it to her, I continued, nodding at Elaine. And then I'm calling the police. Silence, heavy, dangerous. Daniel's expression changed. Not anger, not panic, something colder. Harold, he said slowly, you don't understand how far this goes. I met his gaze. I think, I said quietly, my wife understood perfectly. Elaine stepped between us. Mr. Moore, she said, I suggest you leave. Daniel didn't move. My daughter grabbed his arm. Let's go, she whispered urgently. He hesitated, then smiled at me. This isn't over, he said softly. I watched them walk away, the car pulling out of the driveway, taillights disappearing into the dark. Elaine exhaled. You're going to need protection, she said, and patience. I nodded, my legs suddenly weak. What happens now? I asked. She looked at the suitcase. Now, she said, we open the last folder. My heart sank, because I knew whatever was left inside was the reason my wife had been afraid to tell me, and the reason my daughter had wanted everything gone fast. Elaine didn't rush me. She waited until my breathing slowed, until the weight in my chest settled enough that I could stand without shaking. Only then did she unzip the suitcase the rest of the way. The last folder is always the hardest, she said gently. She wasn't wrong. The folder was thinner than the others. No labels, no name, just my wife's handwriting on the corner. For Harold, only. My throat tightened. Elaine stepped back, giving me space. The garage felt smaller now, as if the walls were listening. I opened it. Inside was a single letter and a small sealed envelope. The letter came first. I recognized her writing instantly, slightly slanted, deliberate, calm, the handwriting of someone who had already made peace with her choices. My love, if you're reading this, then you finally know. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you while I was alive, not because I didn't trust you, but because I knew what it would cost you. My eyes burned. I watched our daughter change slowly, not into someone cruel, but into someone willing to justify anything. At first, I told myself it was stress, then ambition, then fear. By the time I understood the truth, it was already dangerous. Dangerous. The word echoed. I didn't collect this evidence to punish her. I did it to protect you, and to make sure the truth survived me. I paused, steadying myself. There is something in this folder that will hurt more than everything else. But it is the only way this ends cleanly. Please don't let love blind you, and please don't let guilt silence you. My hands shook as I unfolded the sealed envelope. Inside was a USB drive and a notarized statement. Elaine leaned in slightly, reading over my shoulder. This is significant, she murmured. I scanned the document. It was a formal confession, not from Daniel, from my daughter, signed, dated, witnessed. My breath caught. She had confessed months earlier to manipulating finances, to pressuring her mother, to knowingly participating in fraudulent transfers. She de-signed it when my wife threatened to go public. I felt dizzy. She admitted everything, I whispered. Elaine nodded grimly. Your wife didn't want to destroy her, she said. She wanted leverage, enough to stop her. The USB drive was labeled simply, if he denies it. Elaine plugged it into her tablet. Video loaded. My daughter sat across from my wife at the kitchen table. My wife looked thinner than I remembered, sicker, but her eyes were steady. I won't sign anything else, my wife said calmly. And if you try to force your father, this goes public. My daughter laughed nervously. You wouldn't, she said. I already have, my wife replied. Copies are with people you can't reach. Silence. Then my daughter's voice dropped. You're really going to do this to me? She asked. My wife's reply was quiet. You did this to yourself. The video ended. I sank onto the crate behind me. All this time, while I'd been holding my wife's hand in hospital rooms, she'd been fighting a war alone against her own child. Elaine crouched beside me. She loved her, Elaine said softly. That's why she tried to control the damage instead of exposing it immediately. I nodded, numb. What happens now? I asked. Elaine straightened. Now, she said, we honor her instructions. She made a call, calm, professional. By morning, everything moved fast. Investigators arrived, financial crimes, white-collar unit. They took copies of everything. Daniel was detained before noon, his accounts frozen, his partners contacted. My daughter was questioned that afternoon. I wasn't allowed in the room. I sat alone in the living room, staring at the indent on the couch where my wife used to sit. Hours passed. Finally, Elaine returned. She's being charged, she said quietly. Fraud, coercion, accessory. I closed my eyes. And I asked. Elaine hesitated. She asked if you'd come see her. The question landed heavily. I thought of the girl I raised, the woman she became, the choices in between. I will, I said finally. But not today. Elaine nodded. That's wise. Weeks passed. The house emptied slowly, not rushed this time. I kept the things that mattered, let go of the rest. The suitcase stayed with me, not as evidence anymore, as a reminder. I visited my daughter once after she'd been formally charged. She looked smaller, stripped of confidence. She didn't apologize, she didn't argue, she just said one thing. She never trusted me, she whispered. I answered honestly. She trusted you once, I said, and then you taught her not to. That was the last time I saw her. Months later, the case went public. Daniel pleaded out, avoided prison, but lost everything else. My daughter was sentenced, not harshly, not gently, fairly. The media called my wife brave, calculating, a strategist. They didn't know her. She was just a woman who loved her family enough to face the worst truth alone. I visit her grave every Sunday. I bring fresh flowers, and sometimes the suitcase, empty now, just to sit beside her and talk. I tell her she was right about everything, and when I leave, I always hear her voice in my head, calm, steady. Truth doesn't need to rush, it only needs to survive. And it did, because she made sure that even after she was gone, the truth would still find its way home.